Let's talk about what directors actually look for in your acting audition. And spoiler alert, I'm not actually speaking for all directors in the entire world. I'm speaking for myself as a director. And I've heard a lot of casting directors and producers echo what I'm about to tell you. But my hope is that this kind of blows the lid off of the way that you've been approaching your auditions and gives you a whole new way of looking at it that is ultimately more empowering and more fun. So let's start with a myth that I hear from a lot of actors. And some of them verbalize it and some of them just kind of carry it with them at all times, which is the myth that your acting craft is the most important thing in your audition. That is not true. And a lot of actors actually think that your craft is 100% of what goes into your audition and 100% of the decision making. Not only is that not true, but it creates a really damaging weight, a damaging pressure on your ability to deliver. I mean, it makes every audition feel extremely high stakes based on what you're able to execute as a craftsperson moment to moment. And it's also just not true. It's not true. Now, why might you have the idea that your craft is everything? Well, if you went to an acting conservatory or an MFA program, they probably drilled that into you. Craft. Well, guess what? They have a fiduciary duty to their stakeholders and to their board of directors at those schools to make you think that craft is the only thing that matters. They teach craft. Well, follow the money. If they teach craft, they need to perpetuate the idea that craft is everything. Why? So that they can make you think that they have the solution to your problem, and that the only thing needed is learning how to act. Well, that's what they sell. Schools sell things, unless they have a giant endowment. And even then, they're looking for people who go through their program, become famous actors, and attribute it all back to the craft that they learned while they were at, for example, Yale. So time and time again, I meet with actors who've been through, especially the higher tier programs, the MFA programs in New York, and they really think that they're the shit, and they think that they're bulletproof, and they think that they're going to work immediately. And I see many of them, and they don't get a job, like a decent job in acting for like a year or 2 years, or they can't get signed, or look, I'm not saying that those programs are whack. I think if you want to work on stage, they're incredibly useful. Stagecraft is very different than screencraft. But if you're expecting to book film and TV on craft alone, I think you're misguided. And I think the schools do not prepare you for the realities of the market. So for me, acting craft is 25% of what I look for in an audition. I know, that's crazy, 25%. There's other factors that are equal to craft. And now where it really matters is, let's say you're down to callbacks. And in callbacks, you're going up against people who are bringing a similar kind of energy to the role, or a similar look, or a similar intensity. And then, yeah, we're comparing, like, I don't know, amongst 6, 10, 2 people. That's when those differences in craft really matter, because, if 2 people are pretty much equal in every other regard, and one of them has 2% higher craft, like, yeah, that's a metric that is important. But just straight out of the gate, like, who even gets into that callback, there's other factors that matter just as much. Now, I'm not the only one that thinks this. In fact, I was listening in on a casting director session once with Clint Eastwood's casting director. And he took it even further. He said, I kind of can't believe he said this. He was like, you don't need to know how to act to get the part. We'll teach you how to act when you get on set. What you need is a good face. You need a good face, an interesting face, and we can teach you everything else you need to know when you get there. What? So I wouldn't go that far, but that brings me to my next point, which is 25% of what I'm looking for in an audition is your look, literally what I'm looking for. It's not just like conventionally Hollywood hot or whatever, that means now. It's, do you have an interesting face? Do you like, it's height, it's hair color, it's eye color, it's facial structure, bone structure sometimes, body type sometimes, sometimes ethnicity, depending on what the role is calling for. There's many different things that we look for. Why? Because film and theater are a visual medium. Looks matter. Again, that doesn't mean that you need to try to be like a size 0 and, I don't know, get a bunch of filler or whatever that may mean to you. It just means that you need to be aware that it's a visual medium. And, if you have an audition that calls for like, I don't know, you're going out to a nightclub, it's like a nightclub scene, like don't show up in a ratty t-shirt with your hair unbrushed. I freaking see it all the time. So just be aware we're in a visual medium here in this industry. And, for that matter, for most of us, life is a visual medium. And how you visually present has an effect on the people around you, especially if it's their first impression of you. So these are all things to bear in mind as you kind of go through the world and sort of, have various forms of the audition experience in life, whether it's a date or a job interview or going to a party or whatever it is. So 25% of what I'm seeking is visually driven. 25% on craft. Okay, where's the other 50? Good question. So another 25% goes to your energy. Your energy. And, well, what does that mean? That means your vibe, how you feel when you come into the room, how you make me feel. Our energies are affecting each other, whether it's on Zoom or in the real world. It's your also your essence, your soul, your spirit. Somebody could be a very fine actor, but they do a scene and their essence just doesn't feel resonant with the character. It's not your fault, but it's like some of energy is things that you can control and some of it you really can't control. Like, you are who you are. Your spirit is your spirit. And the same way you can't really control your height. So your spirit and your soul is going to be what it's going to be. But short-term and long-term, there's things that you can do to kind of put your best foot forward energetically, the same way you put your best foot forward looks-wise. Can't control your height, but you can control if you brushed your hair that day, right? So with energy, you want to control for, am I in a good mood? Did I get sleep last night so that I literally have physical energy to show up to this audition, properly and positively? And I do see some artists, not just actors certainly, but people over time kind of getting cynical or defensive about the business, especially now. It's a freaking crazy time to try to be entering the entertainment industry or ascending in it. But attitude is part of this. And you want to, over time, just work on attitude of gratitude. I know it sounds cheesy, but it really, like, one of my friends who I actually interviewed, Shannon Gisella, she's the star of MIA, the new Peacock show, which is freaking great, by the way. Oh my God, I've been watching it. I'm hooked. But she told me how she has over time really improved and like perfected her attitude. And that was one of the factors in her getting that role on that show. Number one on the call sheet. It just goes with everything I'm saying, where it's not all craft, it's not all look, attitude and energy is 25% as well. Also watch MIA. It's really great. Okay, this brings us to our last 25%, which is everything else. And this would include your following. This might include if you're famous or not, if you have family connections, like a famous last name or not. This could include a history of arrests or, bad press, or if there's assault allegations or stuff like that, that would go into this category as well. And it also includes your behavior. So if you come into that audition room and you're a total monster to the assistant, that's going to get back to the casting director, and that's not going to go well for you. So, if you're this 25%, if this is like at 0, then that's really going to knock you out of the running for probably the entire consideration process. And that doesn't mean like you have 0 followers, but like I'm talking about the bad stuff, like bad, criminal stuff, or being a monster in the room, or stuff like that. But this is also where you can like score really highly if you have like a 10 million, following or something, like you're an influencer trying to get into acting. You knock this 25% out of the park, well, that's going to count for something if they're looking at the whole 4 quadrants of consideration. So it's not everything, this 25%, but it's not nothing. It also includes like your availability, or your reps trying to negotiate, and they negotiate a little too hard, they ask for a little too much, you get passed on. It's stuff like that. And I see that happen all the time. So this is an important one, but again, it's just one quadrant of 4. And it's important to look at the full picture. Okay, so here's my question to you. If you now know that your audition is not just craft, not even 50%, like if you believe what I'm saying here right now, and you go with this, that it's not everything, and that there's 3 factors that are really important: your craft, your look, and your energy. And then there's everything else too. If these are the 4 considerations, how does that change your approach to your auditions? And how does that change your approach to the industry at large? How are you going to shift your efforts to take that into consideration? I am suddenly thinking of the haircut that I need to get, because my hair is it's like borderline George Washington territory over here. So got to get my hair cut. There's some like new wardrobe items that I want to get. I've been hitting the gym a lot lately, both for energy and for look. So these are things that even I, as a director, take into consideration. What are you thinking now about this? And, summer's coming. Maybe it's time for a little bit of a glow up. Okay, it's been so great to talk to you, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much.
The Vermilion Podcast is sponsored by Vermilion, a home for artists. We offer classes, coaching, and community for creatives and innovators in the arts. If you're ready to find your voice and build the life of your dreams, we're here to support you every step of the way. Check out clubvermilion.com and schedule a free call today.